Today we're diving into a topic that's going to challenge you, inspire you, and most importantly, free you. We're talking about the power of truth, but not just about speaking the truth. We're going to go deeper. We're going to explore why it's your responsibility to tell the truth and not your job to manage how people react to it. This is an absolute game changer, because if you've ever found yourself walking on eggshells and avoiding difficult conversations or worrying how someone else will react or feel when you say what's real for you, then you're going to want to stay tuned. Welcome back to my channel, and by the end of this video you'll have the tools to stand in your truth, free from the need to control or potentially predict other people's reactions. So let's dive in. What does it really mean to be responsible for the truth? Telling the truth is quite simple, but it's not always easy. And we all know that. You see, there's this inner conflict where you want to be honest, but you're also worried perhaps about hurting someone's feelings or making them upset or facing confrontation. Now, the problem is this fear often leads to sugarcoating, avoiding, or sometimes outright lies, and it just makes sure that the other person feels okay. But here's the truth about truth, no pun intended, but you're not responsible for how people take the truth. You're only responsible for speaking it with integrity and compassion. Now, truth-telling doesn't mean being blunt or cruel. It doesn't mean dropping a truth bomb and walking away like it's someone else's problem to clean up, or that emotional mess that may have been created. It's about being clear, transparent, and respectful in your communication. But what happens after that? And the reality is that's not your burden to carry. So let's have a look at the cost of managing other people's reactions, and let's talk about what happens when you try to do this. You see, we all do this at some point, whether it's trying to soften a message so it doesn't sound too harsh, or if it's avoiding saying something altogether because we're afraid of how the other person will respond. But when you try to control how someone will react, you're actually doing them a disservice as well as yourself. So first, when you're focused on managing their response, what happens is you're not fully present in the conversation. Your energy is almost split between telling the truth and then worrying about their feelings. And because of that split, the message often gets watered down. You perhaps don't even come across as authentic, and they will pick up on that. They can sense when almost you're holding back, and then that begins to erode trust. The second thing, and in my opinion more importantly, when you manage someone's reactions, you deny them the chance to process and grow from the truth. You're basically saying, sorry to say this, but you're basically saying, I don't think you're capable of handling this, which is not only unkind, but also disempowering. You see, the truth, even when it stings, is an opportunity for the other person to reflect, grow, and adapt. When you shield them from it, you rob them of that opportunity. So what does this look like in real life? See, maybe you've been in a relationship where you've avoided telling your partner how you really feel about certain behaviours because you didn't want to start a fight, or maybe you've been in a job where you didn't give your honest opinion in a meeting because you were afraid of how your boss would react. So it's like putting a plaster or a band-aid over a wound that actually needs stitches. You're avoiding short-term discomfort, but in the long run, the wound never heals properly. Now, here's the part where things start to get freeing. Let's talk about what happens when you let go of managing people's reactions. First and foremost, you get your energy back. Think about how much mental space and emotional energy goes into worrying about how someone may react. When you let go of that, you free yourself from that unnecessary burden. You don't have to waste time playing out worst case scenarios in your head. You just show up, tell the truth, and move on with your life. Now, secondly, relationships become stronger when they're based on honesty. The people in your life, whether it's your friends, your family, your colleagues, they deserve the truth. Even if it's uncomfortable in the moment, they will respect you more for being real with them in the long run. And the best part, you start attracting people who value honesty. You see, when you commit to being a truth teller, you naturally align with people who appreciate that quality in you. You create a circle of trust and mutual respect, which leads to more fulfilling relationships. And then the next part is letting go of managing reactions, allows you to build authentic confidence. There's a deep sense of empowerment that comes from speaking your truth and not feeling responsible for how it's received. You become grounded in your integrity, knowing that you are showing up in the world in alignment with who you really are. Now, if you're sitting here listening to this and thinking, yeah, okay, I get it, but it's still hard to let go of managing reactions, you're not alone. You see, this is hardwired into us, especially if you're someone who's empathic or highly sensitive to other people's emotions. We're taught from a very young age to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, to be nice, even at the cost of our own truth. We're told that harmony is more important than honesty. And over time, we internalize this message. We start believing that our role is to protect other people's feelings, even if it means sacrificing our own integrity. And on top of that, there's fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing relationships. When we try to manage reactions, it's often because we don't want to face the discomfort that might come after telling the truth. But here's the thing, the discomfort of telling the truth is temporary. The discomfort of living inauthentically, that's permanent. It's also worth noting that we sometimes mistake truth-telling for conflict. Now, just because you're being honest doesn't mean you're starting a fight. In fact, avoiding the truth usually leads to more conflict down the road. It's like building a house on a foundation that's cracking. It might hold up for a while, but eventually it's going to collapse. So if you find yourself hesitating to tell the truth because you're worried about conflict, ask yourself, what's more important to me? Short-term harmony or long-term authenticity? Now let's get into a subtle but dangerous trap that we need to be aware of, which is that managing reactions often leads to people-pleasing. When you're constantly tiptoeing around the truth to protect others, you start living in a way that prioritises their comfort over your own integrity. You begin to shape your words, your actions, and even your identity to match what you think other people want from you. Over time, this can become a full-blown habit where you don't just manage reactions, you start to craft an entire persona that's based on keeping others happy. Now, the problem with this is twofold. The first part is that it disconnects you from your authentic self. You start losing sight of who you really are and what you really want because you've spent so much time almost moulding yourself to fit someone else's expectations. And then secondly, it actually damages your relationships. It may seem counterintuitive, but people pleasing often leads to resentment. You give and give and give, while inside you're becoming more and more frustrated because you're not getting your needs met and you're not being seen for who you truly are. Eventually, this will cause tension even in your closest relationships. So managing reactions is not just about avoiding conflict. It's about maintaining the illusion that everything is fine, even when deep down it's not. The irony is, by trying to make everyone happy, you often end up unhappy yourself. Now let's talk about radical truth-telling. This is where things get powerful. Radical truth-telling is a commitment to always speak your truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. It's about living a life where honesty is a non-negotiable for you. But radical truth-telling isn't about being hurtful or saying things in a way that causes unnecessary pain. It's about aligning your words with your values and being respectful in your delivery and releasing the need to control the other person's response. When you actually commit to radical truth-telling, you're saying to yourself and the world, I value my integrity over your approval. I value authenticity over comfort. I value the long-term health of my relationships over short-term ease. This isn't easy, but it is incredibly freeing. Imagine a life where you never have to wonder, what if they knew how I really felt? Imagine showing up in your relationships without the burden of pretense, knowing that the people around you value and respect you for who you truly are. You see, radical truth-telling gives you that, and whilst it can be tough in the short term, in the long run it creates deeper, more meaningful, beautiful connections. So how do you actually start practicing this in your life, even when it is hard? Here are 5 practical tips to help you just do that. The first one is to start small. Begin by practicing honesty in low-stakes situations. This helps you build the muscle of truth-telling without the fear of major consequences. Tip 2, check your intention. Before you speak, ask yourself, why am I telling this truth? If your intention is to manipulate the outcome or to avoid discomfort, then you're not being responsible for the truth. You're using it as a tool for control. Instead, make sure your intention is pure, to communicate openly, clearly, and respectfully. Tip 3, use I statements. When sharing your truth, frame it from your own perspective. Instead of saying, you never listen to me, try, I feel unheard when we're talking. You see, this takes ownership of your feelings and avoids placing blame, which makes it easier for the other person to receive the message without getting defensive. Tip number 4, accept that discomfort is part of the process. Truth-telling can be uncomfortable, especially in the beginning. But discomfort is not a sign that something's going wrong. In fact, it's a sign that you're growing. Lean into the discomfort, knowing that it's temporary and will lead to a healthier dynamic in the long run for all concerned. And tip number 5, be clear and concise. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is over-explaining or justifying their truth. When you do that, you dilute the message. Keep it simple, direct, and to the point. Trust that the other person will hear what they need to hear in that moment. Remind yourself that it's not your job to manage the other person's reaction. Your job is to tell the truth with kindness and respect. What they do with that truth is up to them. So there you have it. In a world where people are often more concerned with being liked than being real, sharing your truth can feel like a radical act, but it's also one of the most empowering things that you can do for yourself and for those around you as well. So when you commit to sharing your truth and letting go of how it's received, you unlock a new level of personal power, authenticity, and connection. Remember, you are only responsible for the truth, not for how people handle it. And that's where your freedom lies. The truth, even when uncomfortable, is an opportunity for growth. And when you tell it with compassion and integrity, you're giving the people around you the chance to grow too. Now, if you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below about your experiences with truth-telling. I'd love to hear from you, and I do respond to everybody. Until next time, keep creating a life you love, and I'll see you in the next video.